by Gavin.
What's up, guys?
He totally isn't saying that again because of technical difficulties. And
Definitely.
we are playing some Battlefront 2 as usual in the background of MG Podcast number 4. As you can tell by the title, we're going to be talking about the Legacy of Maul, which will cover the Clone Wars and Galactic Civil War time period of our conversation today, and we'll also be talking about the Knights of Ren, what we want to see from them based on everything we know and what we just kind of want to assume about the Knights of Ren. So as we get ready to jump into some heroes and villains as we always do, I want to first kick off this topic with Darth Maul, and we can't talk about the legacy that he's left without first establishing how that legacy started. We first see him in the Phantom Menace as Palpatine's apprentice, the first apprentice movie timeline wise, and he was mysterious in there. He was the first dual wielder we saw introduced to us all in the audience as Star Wars canon. He was actually kind of the first really different fighting style we saw as fans of Star Wars. We didn't really see anybody fight with a different style other than the single lightsaber. We saw Luke fight one lightsaber, Kenobi fight one lightsaber, and we saw Vader fight one lightsaber. And then we see Maul, who fights with a dual-bladed saber, a different design in canon that is a Sith fighting style. Only I think outside of canon, back when Old Republic was in Star Wars canon, Satele was like one of the only other Jedi to have actually fought with this style of lightsaber. So it is a pretty authentic style, especially when you tune it to Maul. And then we progress. We thought he died at the end of episode 1. Turns out that wasn't the case. He very much survived and ended up way past what we expected him to go. He was in the Clone Wars. That's almost 19 years 19 years after 1. No, 10 years after 1 rather. 10 years after 1. So he was down there for 10 years, survived the Clone Wars, got this group called the Shadow Collective, and would go on to, fight out what I believe to be the first battle of the Empire until he met his end years later, 19 years later, at the hands of Kenobi. So to really start this conversation off, I'm going to ask you, Gavin, when you first saw Darth Maul, what was your reaction to seeing such a character?
I was shocked. We have never seen a character that looked anything like him in Star Wars, ever. And to see somebody who not only just, looked the part, but you could actually feel his, the dark side within him, just from visual capture. I honestly, I was just stunned, and I loved the character from the start.
Yeah, because I remember being younger and seeing Darth Maul for the first time, and he not only was he, as I just said earlier, like the first one to have a different fighting style to everybody, but he was the first one to really stand out in looks. He was like the first alien character that we saw as a main character, and he just looked drastically different. Because we have seen aliens in Star Wars obviously everywhere, but he stood out because he was red and black. He had such an evil moniker to him, and as you said, you could feel it. I remember a lot of scenes, especially during that scene on Tatooine where he almost ran Anakin over with a speeder bike. It was like, even though he didn't know what Anakin would become, you can't say, oh, he planned on doing that. He didn't know what Anakin would become. Nobody knew what Anakin would become at that point. But it's the fact that he would take a risk like that. He would take a risk to run little Anakin Skywalker over with a speeder bike, and then fight Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn. And it's just the introduction of Maul was so perfect to me, and he was one of the highlights of episode 1, and I think a lot of people can agree with that statement. When it comes to Darth Maul, when you first see him, there's so much in episode 1 that you could say is a highlight, and that's actually me truthfully saying that, because I think a lot of people, when they think episode 1, they're like, oh, like it was all bad movie. I mean, the power racing sequence was pretty awesome. The Battle of Naboo was pretty awesome, but Darth Maul was I think, greatest part, other than that of Qui-Gon Jinn for me. And so for the character of Maul, really loved it. Really loved the introduction that he had and he was really mysterious. I think that's what really helped him. I know a lot of people will say like, hey, well, you know, you kind of want to know about everything about everybody as soon as you get to it, but it was the mysteriousness of Darth Maul when we first saw him is that really added to his character for me, because here, like I said, he's got a look that we haven't really seen in Star Wars before him, and now you know I think also it's like interesting though because he is the apprentice, only the apprentice Palpatine we know before that of Vader, and we didn't know Dooku was going to happen yet. Keep that in mind when you think about Maul. We didn't know Dooku was going to happen, so for right now, you know, this guy could be the first apprentice before Vader for right now. So to think of that possibility,
Right.
Maul was a definitely interesting character, and to know so little about him at that time, which, you know, I think would have been a letdown for a while because, you know, there was so much time to put something on him. But I think looking ahead to what was to come, you could definitely say, oh yeah, well that was a really cool choice for everything. And it's like, and basically like the information that was revealed about Darth Maul. So I think that introduction from Maul was a perfect one, and then you can move on from that introduction to his death by Qui-Gon. And Reza, when we think about that death, what do you think about the most when you think about the death of Qui-Gon at the hands of Maul?
I thought, because in that movie they made it capture like, oh, you can't defeat a Jedi, and I feel like that moment it changed not only like the entire movie itself, but it also changed the way Anakin viewed the Jedi, you know?
Yeah.
And it actually like let him know that not everything is what it seemed, and that it's more than a Jedi. There's more to being a Jedi than just using the Force or having a lightsaber. And I felt like Darth Maul himself really changed a lot, not just for him, but for the entire movie itself, and really made that movie what it is.
Because I think, you know, we always attribute, you know, we think, oh yeah, Anakin felt really sad when it came to the death of Qui-Gon, because we know it's said he looked up to Qui-Gon, and Maul and Anakin went in with the belief that, you know, like a Jedi couldn't be killed. We've seen him say multiple times that he thought Jedi were kind of like the overarching power in the galaxy. He thought that they couldn't be stopped.
Right.
And then, you know, all these events take a turn for the worse, and you find out that the one Jedi who saved you was killed by a Sith Lord. And you gotta keep in mind, like, these Sith were gone for years. Like, Sith weren't a common thing in the galaxy at this point. Like, Sith were destroyed. They thought they were believed to be an afterthought in the galaxy. And here comes this mysterious individual wielding a lightsaber who comes in and shatters that belief and gets rid of it. So I think for Maul, he plays a bigger role in Star Wars than people really need to really think about, you know.
Right.
So we move on from that, from talking and thinking about, you know, his introduction and how he came in and killed Qui-Gon and kind of I guess you could say he really kind of set the Clone Wars in motion. Didn't directly start the Clone Wars, but really set it in motion. Let's go back to when he was first brought back, when we see him in Clone Wars. A moment that a lot of people, when it happened, never thought it would happen. What was going through your head when we first saw the return of Darth Maul in Star Wars: The Clone Wars?
I was excited. I was so excited to see Darth Maul return, because I feel like we didn't see enough of him, and even though, and the amount that we saw from him, he made such an impact on Star Wars, not just in that film, but as a whole, and just know that he was going to be coming back just really excited me to see what he could bring to the future.
Yeah,
and although he's gone now, he brought so much more to the story than he did in just the first film that he was in. They couldn't have done him better.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And before I say my little pit here, I wanted to say what's up to Bork Centaur, aka North Star. Welcome to the chat. Remember you from
Welcome to the chat.
Welcome to the MMG podcast. But back to the Maul situation, his reintroduction in Clone Wars. I remember when the first trailers were coming out, and when they were, I think it was season 4 when he returned, and the first trailers for season 4 started coming out, and some of them featured Maul, and I remember thinking to myself, I was like, wait, how is this possible? How. Yeah. I was like, how is he here? Like, how is Maul in the Clone Wars? Like, he got cut in half. It was like different if like he lost a limb or something like that. Like when you think of a person getting cut in half, it's like he's gone. Like there's no way.
To everybody without, to everybody without question, he was gone.
He's dead, man. And it's like, oh no, he's alive. He's out there somewhere in the galaxy. And before I finish this, North Star said in the chat, Darth Maul definitely was an important part of Star Wars, probably the best part of episode 1. We definitely covered that. He was one of the highlights of episode 1. And to think that, yeah, he came back. He came back from getting cut in half, And not only that, but when you first see him after being cut in half was just a remarkable moment to me. Because he comes out with because essentially you got introduced to his brother, that being Savage Opress, who is another Zabrak. A little bit different look than his brother. Went with a yellow and black look, not a red and black look. But his brother is searching for him, and he arrives at this planet. He arrives at this planet that is nowhere near Naboo. I can't remember the name of the planet, but it's nowhere near Naboo. Basically, it was like a trash planet where like all like scrap gets taken, and you see he gets down to this place. There's like this weird. I will say this about that episode. The weirdest part of the episode was that weird. Do you remember the snake thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing was so weird to me. Yeah, that was the weirdest part about that episode. But thanks, I'm sorry for the follow, for pledging yourself to the dark side. But It was just so weird, like the snake thing. I love the episode altogether, but the snake thing was weird. But it was like a funny weird, so I'm not like nagging on it or something. But moving on from that, like Savage comes down there and he sees his brother, and it's like it's crazy because there he is. He's there, but he's not there. If you know what I'm saying. Like he's cut in half. He's lost his mind. Obviously, he's mumbling to himself. He's like he wants him. He's obviously referencing Obi-Wan, and he's just not there. And it's just like what is it about you that drove you so far? And then I really can't fathom how far the character fell, from how he looked in 1, because in 1, he's calm, he's cool, he's collected, he isn't really overzealous about anything. Then you jump to the first time you see him in Clone Wars, and he's a madman who's not really driven on revenge. He's just gone mad. And then Savage kind of changes, like tries to get a hold of his brother, and he gets a hold of him and like changes him. He's like, oh, like this is not who you're supposed to be. Like, you're my brother. You're supposed to be strong. And it was just a really great character change. Because I think that's what Star Wars does best, is the evolution of characters.
Right.
So seeing how drastically Maul changed from being the calm, cool Sith to being the madman who was lost to time, thought dead previously, was just a really cool thing. And I think the coolest thing was the way that, like, even though Maul had a point of being a madman, that time period of being deranged and crazy, he kind of snapped back immediately, and you really got to see how smart he was. You really got to see how smart Darth Maul was, because in episode 1 you didn't really get to see the smart side of Maul. You got to see the abilities of Maul. You got to see the strength that he had, but you didn't see his plotting, his thinking. Clone Wars gave you that, because I can always remember the way he drove out Kenobi the first time. You know, when he went to that village and slaughtered everybody because he knew the Jedi would respond. He knew that Kenobi would be the one to respond. And he came out, and here comes Kenobi. And just like clockwork. And not only does Kenobi respond, Kenobi came alone, which I'm pretty sure Maul knew what would happen as well. And Maul had Savage Opressed in his corner, had his younger brother in his corner. So not only would he have Kenobi, he would have Kenobi outnumbered, and he would have Kenobi alone. So Maul's thinking in Clone Wars really set him apart from what you saw in Episode 1, because as I said, Episode 1 was more, you know, here's this Dark Lord with tremendous abilities like you've never seen before. But now, as we jump into Clone Wars, here's this Dark Lord with, as you can really see why Palpatine wanted him to be his apprentice. I think big in the beginning, because you could see how smart he is, you could see how powerful he is, and I think that really helped elevate Maul to another level in terms of like everybody's favorite character. And
Definitely.
And then I also want to touch on the idea of when they moved more into the personal life of Maul, and we learned a lot more about where he came from. And I think the most important aspect of that backstory is Mother Talzin. She was a crucial character for Star Wars. If you don't know Mother Talzin, she is the mother of Darth Maul, and she used a dark side alchemy, which is basically like magic and whatnot. But it was very critical to like her character, very critical. And I want to know from you, when you saw Mother Talzin, and you got to see a new side of powers in Star Wars, because like we said, I haven't seen magic in Star Wars before this point in terms of like being a viewer. So what did you think when you first saw Mother Talzin introduced?
I felt like she was a really interesting character. Seeing her for the first time, I didn't know what to expect, but I knew that she was gonna raise a problem for Sidious of all people, and I knew that she was gonna be like a very powerful person, well, being in the series. But seeing her, I was honestly just how large she was and how powerful. I was amazed. Like, I didn't think that there was another being so like hidden from everybody who could be so powerful without nobody really knowing who it is, other than the people who live there.
Yeah, because
Insidious.
I'm gonna tell you, I don't want to start any new theories here by saying this, but another character that I feel like definitely you can compare her to in terms of like their mysteriousness is actually Snoke, because you know, I feel
For sure.
like even when you look at how she carries herself, her stance, it's very reminiscent of what Snoke would become. I'm not saying they're like the same individual, obviously, because they're very much different, but the mysteriousness that surrounds them both has a similarity that you can't ignore, you know. So looking at Mother Talzin and what she brought to Star Wars is really different, you know, because as I said, magic wasn't seen yet. And you know, I think magic is something that's always going to be in storytelling, no matter if it's a galaxy far away or something based in our galaxy. There's always going to be some form of magic. So it's interesting to see where they took it. And it was also interesting to know that Maul was connected to such power in the galaxy, because as you mentioned, Talzin was something Palpatine feared. And to know that Maul was the daughter of the one power that Mother Talzin feared the most. To know that he was
the son.
Oh yeah, the son. I do that all the time. But to know that he was the son of somebody. And yeah, that's not really magic, I understand. But it's alchemy. I call it alchemy. That's the term that you really want to use. Alchemy is know that he was so closely connected to that power. To know that he was the son of this woman. See, you got it that time. And Palpatine wanted him as his apprentice. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, there is a story out there about when Palpatine first got Maul as his apprentice. Got him as a child, actually, if I'm not mistaken. He was just a child and had to give her up. And I'm not mistaken, also Talzin at first didn't want to give her son up. I think Palpatine threatened her along the lines of something like that. I might be pushing with the threatening on her part, but I'm pretty sure she didn't want to give him up in the beginning. And we eventually lead up to what would become like the apprenticeship of Maul. And it just really makes you think, like, you know, when, like, if you fear this woman so much, you know, if you fear that she's the only one who could threaten your plans to grow an empire, why make her your apprentice? Right? Why make her son your apprentice? You know?
Right.
Why have such a bridge? Like, I understand, like, oh, you want to ally yourself with them, but you have their son as your apprentice. It's like building a huge bridge between you and your greatest fear. Maybe it's like the idea of, like, you know, keep your friends closer, your enemies closer kind of deal. And I just don't know. It's just really kind of weird, you know, when you just get down to it.
Yeah.
I can't get into the mind of Palpatine. I can't be one to say, oh yeah, this is why he would do it. This is like all assumptions. It's really all we could do with anything Palpatine related when you really think about it. So I can't be one to say, oh, this is definitely what he wanted to do. But it's just something that makes you think. And then I think one of the most important storylines. Oh, by the way, North Star asks, by the way, how would I be able to talk? Just put your thoughts in the chat about anything that we talk about, and you know, I will try my best to call them all up and bring your ideas to the table. We'll also talk about any statements that you have to make about our subjects, because you know, we try to get you guys in here as much as we can. So this is the most interactive. Sure. This is the most interactive podcast you're probably going to see. So that's how you will be able to get your thoughts in this MG podcast. And now going back to the Maul deal, and I want to really talk about as I was saying, the most important arc for me personally when it comes to Maul and the Clone Wars, and that was the Shadow Collective arc. If you remember, him basically building his own empire in the Outer Rim. He had
yeah, for sure.
If I can remember all the species correctly, I know I'm gonna forget a lot of them. He had Mandalore, the Pike. I'm not mistaken, is what they were called.
Yeah, yeah.
The Pike, and I can't remember the Black Sun. Wait, did he have the Black Sun, or did he just kill the Black Sun? Yes, the Black Sun.
The Black Sun.
He killed the Black Sun leaders, but then he took over for everybody else left. That's what he was. And he had the Black Sun. It was Mandalore, the Pike, the Black Sun, the Night Sisters / Night Brothers. But even though they didn't really go out with him, they really stayed where Mother Talzin told them to stay. But those were the members of his Shadow Collective, of what they became to be known as. And the reason I think this was the most important arc for Maul in the Clone Wars, because it showed how much he could be like Palpatine if he really tried. Because Palpatine undermined the two biggest governments in the galaxy, the Trade Federation and the Republic. He ran both and eventually merged them all into one. Maul essentially did the exact same thing, just with every crime syndicate, like major crime syndicate in the galaxy. Like the only one he really couldn't break was the Hutts, and that's understandable because those are the Hutts. He couldn't bend the
For
Hutts
sure.
to his will, but he could get the Black Sun. He could get the Pikes. He could even bend Mandalore to his will, and that's the Mandalore thing is impressive enough, but adding in Black Sun and the Pikes, two huge crime families in the galaxy, and you've manipulated them into following your will. Um, it's just absolutely amazing to really think about. It's like, hey, this guy is smart enough to do something like this. Could Palpatine do it if he tried? Probably, but do it the way that Maul did it? I don't think so, because not even Mandalore, the Death Watch. He got, because gotta give my Death Watch and Mandalore are technically two different things at this point in time. Death Watch, he was able to bend. Now, obviously, so many people in the Death Watch, a pre-Vizsla, had their other plans, but quickly made work of pre-Vizsla, and any Mandalorians that were unbeknownst to his cause either left when Bo-Katan went away, or got their act straight and stayed with Maul and his Shadow Collective. So I really feel like that was the most important arc. And I'm gonna ask your opinion on it, but first I want to take another question from based on this topic. Asks, any clue what happened to the Hutts after episode 6? I don't know if there's anything. I haven't seen anything about the Hutts after episode 6 personally. Have you?
Me neither. I haven't seen anything other than Jabba's death. I don't know
Yeah.
anything else other than that.
I haven't seen, yeah, because I think they should, but I don't think there's much to do per se, because Jabba was the biggest one. I think there was a Jabba's funeral something. I think I read something about that. I think there was like something about Jabba's funeral, but other than that, I haven't really seen anything concerning Hutts after episode 6. That's me personally. Not saying there is anything out there, but me personally, I haven't seen anything about the Hutts post episode 6. But okay, but back to the Maul conversation, and I was gonna ask you, what did you think about that whole Shadow Collective arc? Do you agree with me? Do you think it was the most important arc for Maul in the Clone Wars?
Honestly, I agree with you, and knowing that he had such an influence throughout the galaxy in such a short amount of time, that he was able to bring so many different clans that don't even associate with one another together under his rule, and the fact that he was he even what's the word for it? Tried to rival against Darth Sidious himself.
Yeah,
I feel like that's pretty big.
because
That was pretty big to his story, and not just Star Wars, but to his story alone. Like the character development that went into him from the beginning, where he was quiet, collected, and out to just murder Jedi, to insane
yeah,
loss of his lower limbs, to being smarter than outsmarting everybody in the galaxy and always being one step ahead. It's just so interesting to me.
yeah, because I think looking at that whole arc, is like you said, he wanted to rival Palpatine. And I don't think that just speaks to how smart he is, but I think that speaks to how driven Maul was as a character. Because
Right.
he didn't take the time to sit back and watch. He wanted to get right into the middle of it. He wanted to tear down what his former master was aiming to build, because he didn't know 100% what Palpatine's goal was, but he knew that Palpatine had something that he wanted to tear down. He knew that that was going to be his ultimate revenge for basically tossing him to the side. Palpatine didn't go looking for him. Palpatine just left him for dead. He gave no effort to save his apprentice. So Maul
Right.
was like, this is my great revenge. This is me building my empire to go against the empire that you're trying to build. And I think that really
Right.
speaks to the drive that Maul had. And we got another question in the chat. from North Star, who says, do you think Maul would have taken do you think Maul would take Ezra as an apprentice? Had Maul been able to take Ezra as an apprentice and kill Obi-Wan, would he have built another crime organization? There you go. I couldn't get that out correctly. Would he, basically, if he was able to kill Kenobi and make Ezra his apprentice, this is going into the Rebels time arc, do you think he would have built another organization after that?
I don't think he would. At that point, he's of age and he was like so wise. I don't think he'd really wanted to build an organization. He was so focused on Kenobi that I don't even think Sidious is one of his thoughts still.
Yeah. I'm gonna tell you what I think about the situation, because I know that they've said multiple times in terms of his drive in there. I don't want to get too much into it because we're gonna get to this point in time, but they say that his goal really was to kind of leave a legacy at that point, not really care about his future, but to leave a legacy. So I think as far as creating another crime organization, I don't think that would have been one of his goals. I think his goal would have been just to train Ezra in the dark side, to know that when his time was up, that Ezra would still uphold everything he taught him in the ways of the dark side of the Force. So I think that's what Maul would have done had he been able to kill Obi-Wan and take Ezra as his princess, just continue Ezra's training. I think possibly he would even made Ezra fight Kenobi, probably. But that's just a topic for later. We're gonna move back into Maul during the Clone Wars time period, and I want to talk about what is quite possibly the most important scene, not only in Maul's return story, but I think in that entire Clones show in general. Some people might argue this. Some people might argue it was the Ahsoka leaving. I argue it's this. It is the scene in which Maul and Sidious fight. Maul and Sidious have a duel, and for me, that is just the most important scene in the entire Clone Wars show. Simply because of the weight that was carried in that fight. Savage Opress, his brother, was just killed by Palpatine moments before they went on one-on-one. And I just couldn't believe my eyes seeing that fight. I don't think anybody could, seeing Maul and Sidious fight. And not only that, but seeing Sidious fight. That lets you know how far Maul came. Like, at one point, Sidious just saw Maul as an afterthought. But Maul became such a problem that Sidious was like, I gotta handle you myself. I'm literally gonna go to Mandalore and handle you myself. Like, that's how big a problem Maul became for Palpatine. And this question just got asked at the perfect time. What did Sidious do to Maul when he defeated him? This is actually what I was just about to get into. After Sidious defeated Maul, he actually kept him and was going to use Maul and to kill Mother Talzin, because as we said earlier, Palpatine really feared Mother Talzin as being the only one who could stop his empire. So he was going to use Maul as a way to kill Mother Talzin. He was basically going to use her as bait, and put it in the simplest way possible. And I just want to ask, when you saw that Palpatine, came out of the shadows to duel his former apprentice, what were you thinking in that moment? What was going through your head?
It's about to go down. I got so excited. I got so excited to see that even before episode 3 that Sidious took the time to go and see Maul in person and deal with him himself. I never thought I'd see the day where he'd actually go out and try to fight somebody other than whenever Windu came to come up to him. Yeah. He's never really gone out of his way to fight anybody.
Yeah, and to
see him go out of his way
Yeah.
for Darth Maul, somebody we all thought was dead, him included. Like, it just...
I think
It's shocking.
it really speaks to Maul like the most, because his goal was to drive a wedge into that empire. It didn't turn out the greatest way. He didn't get what he wanted, but he definitely jeopardized it. For Palpatine to say, okay, I need to go stop this before it becomes something I can't handle anymore. And I think it's just so important. It just speaks to the legacy that Maul left. And honestly, because I've told you about this, because this would eventually lead to Maul escaping, going back to Mother Talzin and her Night Sisters / Night Brothers, and it will lead to the death of Mother Talzin, as General Grievous would be added into this fate. General Grievous would be the one to actually kill Mother Talzin. If some people don't know that, this was all covered in a comic series. I believe the comic series is called Son of Dathomir. I might be confusing it with another comic series, but I think it was Son of Dathomir. And
I do believe so. Yeah.
And because I know there's 2 comic series about Maul. They don't like intercross each other. Like, they don't interfere with each other's stories, but one of them's not canon anymore. And basically Maul, basically it was like, I can't remember. I think it was on Dathomir where Mother Talzin was killed. She was killed by Grievous, because both Grievous and Dooku were there. No, actually now I remember correctly. Grievous killed Mother Talzin, her physical body, but she used her classic Night Sister alchemy to become a spirit. I guess you can say she was a Force spirit. And I'm not saying she was a Force spirit, but that's the best thing to attest it to, so people can get an idea of what it was like around their head. She became an alchemy spirit, and it's just so crazy to see. Mother Talzin fighting Grievous. Just thinking about that fight would be insane. I think just thinking of any Grievous fight would be just crazy to think about, because it's Grievous and the way he can fight. But just to think of like Talzin fighting Grievous, because we've seen Talzin fight before. We saw her fight Windu. So to see her fight someone like Grievous would be insane to see. And Grievous would end up defeating her. Maul would escape, and it would eventually lead to a confrontation between Dooku and, I'm trying to remember everything correctly here. It was Dooku, Maul, and Grievous. Dooku was out. No, Dooku, Maul, Grievous. And I think Palpatine was there too. It was Dooku, Maul, Grievous, and Palpatine. And I might be wrong about the Palpatine thing, but I know Dooku and Grievous were there. And yeah, Palpatine was there. It's just, my mind's all over the place in this story right now. And Palpatine was fighting. All of them were fighting each other. Mother Talzin, who's dead at this point, actually possessed the body of Dooku. And when she possessed the body of Dooku, she used it to fight Palpatine, while Maul fought Grievous.
Right.
And I told you this, what I personally believe about this story is, a lot of people, think the Empire didn't really start until, the Empire started. I attest this fight to the first true battle of the Empire, because it wasn't just a fight skirmish that these two had like once. Like, this was a whole, like, basically mini war that broke out between Maul's forces and Palpatine's forces. Like, they fought basically a shadow war. I don't want to play words on the Shadow Collective, but they fought a shadow war that most of the galaxy did not know about. So just to see everything that played out in that time period, because this is after Clone Wars, but this is before Episode 3. This is before Ahsoka went to Mandalore and all this. Just to see that was just like absolutely insane. And we got another comment here from North Star who says, "My opinion, Maul did leave a legacy, not the one he wanted, but as much as he done to the Mandalore alone, I think definitely leaves his legacy in the galaxy." And that's definitely something to agree with. Mandalore is a huge part of Maul's legacy. And while speaking of Mandalore, it was after this Shadow War that Maul returned to returned to Mandalore, and kind of took power again. Didn't kind of show the power like he did the previous time. He was like a more behind the scenes kind of deal because he didn't want to attract the attention of Palpatine again. But Mandalore, like, he did have a huge sway in the politics of Mandalore and what was done, and it would eventually lead to the Jedi finding out that Maul was there. This is where the Ahsoka storyline of like her tale like intersects into the Maul story, and Ahsoka goes to Mandalore with half of the 501st Legion, including Captain Rex, and she goes to Mandalore, and it is her job to get rid of Maul. She is unable to kill him, but she does chase him away. He escapes, and the next time we see him, it is Star Wars Rebels, and I definitely will toot my own horn because I predicted a month before the first Rebel Season 2 trailer that Maul would be in Star Wars Rebels. But
oh yeah, you did.
I did. But a lot of people, including parts of myself, believe that we would never see Maul again. So just like the first time when I asked you what was your reaction to him returning the first time, what was your reaction to seeing Maul return a second time, but this time for Star Wars Rebels?
I still remember this like it was yesterday. So whenever he came on the screen for not only the first time, but the third time, seeing him after, again, we thought we would never see him again. I got so excited. I threw my remote. I threw it at the wall. I was like, are you kidding me? I got so hyped. And to see that he actually had, like, he had new legs from the last time we had seen him. To see he had the cane, I was so excited. I was, not only was I shocked, but I was so excited because he had already done so much by this time that what else more could he do?
Yeah.
And that was the question I had for Rebels. I
just really love it, the fact that they were able to bring him back, again. And
right.
The most impressive part about it was they brought him back again, but this time it was in a time period where you would have been like, Maul in the Galactic War? No, impossible. No, they did it. They brought Maul back during the time of the Empire. A time where 10 years ago, you'd have been like, there's no way he would have survived that long, to like, oh, he was there. And not only was he there, he fought Kenobi one more time. Like, he was there. And it's like, dude, I can't help but respect what they did and how they did it. They brought him back. He was on the planet of Malachor. I want to say it was the name of that planet. He was in one of the ancient Sith temples where an ancient battle took place. And again, before I want to bring up this point, another question: do you think it would be possible as a last tribute to Maul that they would have him as a Force ghost, or make a reference to him in some shape or form? I think it's something possible. We can see a reference to Maul somewhere. Movie, I don't know about movies. Maybe. If something comes up about the Sith again, maybe. I can definitely see like a comic or something, maybe of him before episode 1, more stuff as him like as Palpatine's apprentice or something I can expect, because I know there's one comic book series based around his apprenticeship to Palpatine.
Right.
Or
even a game, because they were going to make that one game.
Yeah, that was supposed to happen. Never happened, but I definitely want it to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah.
For sure.
So as a final tribute to Maul somewhere in the future, I think it's a definite possibility. So I would say keep an eye out, for something like that, if I was to suggest it. So back to the Maul situation. He was on Malachor, Sith Temple, ancient Jedi battle took place there. That's where he basically took refuge. That was his exile. He was like the Sith version of Luke Skywalker, kind of. He exiled himself there. And I think the biggest testament is, like we said earlier, Star Wars the biggest thing is character development. And again, that he had changed so much since the first time we saw him, or the second time we saw him, better yet. Because think about, like, first time we saw Maul, again, calm, cool, collected. Second time, the first time we see him, he's a deranged madman who resorts into a insanely smart, cunning Sith Lord. Then we go to yet another place, and it's just insane. You see how far he can, because now he's very I'm gonna say, I don't want to say regal because that sounds too light side, but he's very wise. That's the word. That's the perfect word. He's a lot wiser than what he was, and he's like a tame Palpatine. That's what I'm gonna say he was. I'm gonna say he was a tame Palpatine at this point. So my question to you, in terms of Kilowatts, our friend Yakub is in the chat. My question to you, Gavin, is when it comes to Maul and his rebels mindset, you know, what he had become. What do you think about it? Like, what do you think led to him becoming a lot more wiser in that 18 year time period?
Well, he's been around for a long time. He's seen the birth of the Empire. He's seen the birth of the Clone Wars. He's been through it all. And it makes a lot of sense to see him wise and looking for more of a legacy instead of complete control like his master before him. I mean, his master. It's really nice to see him making wise decisions and just wanting to have somebody to be there as a legacy for him. And to see that whenever he was talking to Ezra, and the fact that he didn't have as much anger as he did before, and to see that he's way more calm and collected, I feel like that was really nice to see, especially from his character, because we had never seen that from him before until now. I feel like it's really nice to see. Honestly, it was really nice to see.
Because I feel like it was a combination of what we saw in episode 1 of him,
right,
and what we saw in Clone Wars of him minus the deranged. Like it was really a combination of everything being like morphed and molded into one like perfect Maul. I guess just like a word or a phrase to describe it. And I would really like to see that, you know, like to see a more smarter Maul, because he had, again, he had a cunning in that arc he had in Star Wars Rebels. He had a cunning that just wasn't really couldn't be matched by other people. He knew how to draw Ezra out. He knew how to draw Kanan away from Ezra. You know, he had that cunning that was very much there in Clone Wars. And it only got greater. And I feel like showing Maul in this style shows you how much he probably learned this from Palpatine, his former master. You know, because Palpatine had a very, very strong cunning, but Maul had one that could definitely rival him. So,
right.
You get on the idea of like him wanting Ezra as an apprentice to kind of continue the legacy that, because like we said, he kind of got to a point where he cared more about his legacy than control, because he knew that, you know, he wasn't going to be the one to like stop the Sith. You know, he always wanted to be that one, you know, because the Sith had taken so much from him. But he kind of got to a point where he understood that, yeah, I'm probably not going to be the one to do it. So I need to leave a legacy and train the person who will be able to do it. And when they defeat the Sith, my teachings are the only things that will be left in the galaxy. So it's like his version of the Sith is what will prevail over Palpatine's version of the Sith. And I think it was very crucial for Maul to do that, and it was very important to his character to have that kind of adaptation for him. And like I said, it's just really important for Maul in general. And now I kind of get into the very, very important, immensely important. Actually, going to ask you this one question. There's one question again. What does the weapon on Malachor do? The weapon on Malachor is like an extermination weapon. It just wipes out life on planets and whatnot. It doesn't destroy the landscape. It just wipes off. It just wipes life. It's an extermination type weapon. And now we're gonna get into season 3 of Star Wars Rebels, the season where we got the ending of Maul, Kenobi versus I was about to say Kenobi versus Obi-Wan, Kenobi versus Maul on Tatooine. How important was that moment? I think saying that is an understatement, but how important was that moment of Kenobi versus Obi-Wan? Jeez, I actually said it. Kenobi versus Maul.
You actually said that. Honestly, extremely important. Not only did it show growth from Obi-Wan, but from Maul, but Obi-Wan too. It showed growth. You see two characters who have grown so much over the amount of time they've fought from the first time to now. But at the same time, it showed similar things because the way Maul ended up dying was the way Maul killed Qui-Gon. And to see that, it's just, I don't know, I feel like it was a great way to bring it all together and bring
It's that full circle
Darth
moment.
Maul's story to a close.
Yeah, because I think
And to see,
well, it's like a lot of people, a lot of people, when they were expecting this fight, me included, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Me included, we're expecting, this huge over the top fight. We were expecting, the huge, final revenge, like, oh, this is gonna take up half the episode kind of fight. And when that episode first aired, I remember I would keep looking at the clock next to me, and would notice like, oh, it's like, it's like it's like just like 8 minutes left in here. Like this is only gonna be an 8-minute fight, and the time ticking down, and they weren't fighting yet. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be like a 5-minute fight, 3-minute fight. Like what's going on here? And
yeah,
and it just like in an instant, like if you blink, you missed it kind of fight. Like it was like 2 strikes. Maul tried to hit him in the face with the saber the same way he did Qui-Gon, and Kenobi saw through it, sliced him, and that was it. And I'm really pleased with that as well. Like almost as pleased as I would be with an actual like huge fight, because it was grounded, it was simple, and it had so much weight. And then his final words, the final words that he said, where he asks Kenobi, was it the chosen one? Because when he first showed up, he asked Kenobi, like, why was he here on Tatooine? Like, why was he hiding out on a desert planet? And he kind of deducted that he was there protecting something or someone, which would be Luke Skywalker. And Maul would ask him, was he the chosen one? And Kenobi responded, yes, because a lot of people were like, well, Anakin's the chosen one. Well, Kenobi thought Luke was the chosen one, if you want, because of that situation.
because he believed Anakin failed him.
Yeah. He thought as far as Anakin was, like, there was no hope with Anakin. So it's just like, like don't like he shifted his prophecy to the son of Anakin, to that Skywalker being the chosen one. So he tells him, yes, that was the chosen one. And then Maul says that he will avenge us both. And then that's when he passes away. And it was I think just saying that, like just saying he will avenge us both, like adds another layer to the character, even though that's the moment he died. Because his from the moment he got cut in half to that very moment, which is almost 30 years. Almost 30 years. He had hated Kenobi with a burning passion. And in that moment, he almost saw him as an ally, because he said he will avenge us both. First time he referred to Kenobi in a positive light in the 20 years that he called him an enemy. And he died peacefully because he knew his death wasn't in vain. I think he was okay with the fact that Kenobi killed him because Kenobi was defending something that would get his ultimate revenge. Because I think the thing to realize about Maul is, while Maul did hate Kenobi, that is true. There's no being around the bush when it comes to that. He hated Kenobi. But Kenobi wasn't his true enemy. His true enemy was the Sith. He wanted to end the Sith. And he understood that Kenobi was defending the only thing to destroying his true enemy. So, like, if he had been killed by someone else, I think Maul would have died a much more angry death. But he had an ending that was well deserved. He understood that this is what had to happen. He kind of accepted his death in the end. And I think that's what's so important, is he accepted that death.
Right.
And that...
And not only that, but his death was very peaceful, and I feel like that was a good way to end such an amazing character.
And he would later be buried. And I think that's... And the irony in that, but you know, that Kenobi would end up, you know, holding the man that killed his master, the man that took so much away from him. In that man's, in his final minutes, it was Kenobi who was holding him. You know, that Kenobi had a full circle moment. You know, he held Qui-Gon in his hands while he was dying, and now he held Maul in his hands while Maul was dying. I think there's so much irony in that moment. Not that it's not bad irony by any means, but it was a good parallel that shows you that the Force works in mysterious ways. That's like the only way to really put it. So I'm really, really proud of that ending. So that is the legacy of Maul. We spent 57 minutes covering everything about Maul, and we honestly, there's so much more that we can cover. And we could probably go for like 10 more minutes about Maul, but we're gonna cut the Maul conversation short there, and because we do have another topic we have to cover before this podcast is over. That is the Knights of Ren, and you know what we want from them, because crucial part of this new trilogy, I think, well, they can be a crucial part should they choose to do something with them, are the Knights of Ren. We don't know where they come from. Well, now we know where they come from. Last Jedi just revealed that they were once students. Well, they didn't straight up say it, but it's supposed to be inferred that they were one. Yeah, they were once students of Luke Skywalker at his academy, but they also left with Kylo Ren the night the academy was destroyed. So, in terms of canon information of what we know about the Knights of Ren, there are, 6 of them? Not including Kylo, I think. There's 6 not including Kylo. And they were all once students of Luke Skywalker. That's kind of all we know. And that Kylo is the master of them. Like, he's the top one. And that's really all we know. And, J.J. Abrams, I've told you this before outside of the podcast, J.J. Abrams has said about the Knights of Ren that there's enough information about the Knights of Ren written on paper somewhere to have them have their own spin-off movie. So there is a lot of lore behind the Knights of Ren in private, but in public we don't know that much. And I really feel like it's time to bring that out. One of the things that was missing from The Last Jedi that I think a lot of people noticed was there were no Knights of Ren. We had no Knights of Ren in that movie. They weren't there for Snoke. They weren't even mentioned in this movie. Which was really awkward. Like, I think that was a director choice. I'm not knocking Rian Johnson by any means, but I really feel like, for me personally, if J.J. Abrams directed this entire trilogy, I feel like he would have had the Knights of Ren in Episode 8. I feel like he would have brought them in, because he was definitely behind their creation. I feel like he would have had them in the position that the Praetorian Guards were in, not dying, obviously, because he would have wrote it differently. But I think they would have been somewhere around Snoke protecting him or wherever he chose to be. I'm
Right.
hoping that they get a expanded role moving into the Last Jedi. I mean, moving into Episode 9, because the table has definitely been set for them to have an expanded role. One of the things that happened was Kylo becoming the Supreme Leader. I would say spoiler alert, but it's April, so not really. Um, one of the things that has happened was Supreme Leader Kylo, or Supreme Leader Ren, or how you want to choose to say it, is a thing now. So I would expect him to kind of bring them out, have the Knights of Ren kind of be his version of Praetorian guards, or be the ones who guard him.
For
So
sure.
that's what I want to see of the Knights of Ren. What do you want to see of the Knights of Ren?
I would like to see more. I would like to see like dialogue between them, like, and see them talking about the events of the. I don't know if you would call it the second purge, but the fight on the Jedi Temple and Luke's
Yeah,
temple. I would like to hear them talk about that because I would honestly like to see what they think of it, and also Kylo, because all he
yeah,
talks about is the wrongs that Luke did to him, but he never talked about anything he did.
yeah,
So I feel like that'd be very interesting to see, because all we know is that there were Jedi, but we don't know how many. So I would like to know more about that.
yeah. So I think, uh, playing on that idea, J.J. Abrams said like there is enough information about the Knights of Ren for there to be a movie. If would you petition for a Knights of Ren movie? Like, would that be something you would want to see?
Most definitely.
I think I would like to see it. I wouldn't. But the question: would you put Kylo in it, or would you kind of leave him out and focus on the other members of Knights of Ren?
I feel so. The way I'd want to see it is I would like to see Kylo in the Knights of Ren and how like and when they're at the Jedi Temple, I like to see it right there. And then for the rest of it, it could be like what the Knights of Ren are doing during the Last Jedi, and I
Yeah,
feel like that would be really cool to see.
because they're so crucial. I really want to see how they kind of were created, like the training process for them.
Exactly.
Uh, because I would say one of the things that I did like in the Last Jedi. Well, one of the things I did like in the last, yeah, well, I said it right the first time. In the Last Jedi was how Kylo, when he had the mask and Snoke was telling him to take it off, he said, "Take that ridiculous thing off." Like he hated the idea of that mask. So I
Right.
want to see like when it came to like becoming dressed for this role, like for the role of becoming a Knight of Ren, when it came down to that, was it their choice to don this gear? Was it Kylo just wanting to be like his grandfather, Darth Vader, and he kind of like spread it to everyone else? Because if you're looking at concept art for the Knights of Ren, and in that scene where you briefly see them in The Force Awakens, they do wear helmets that are at least a similar design of Kylo. So was that something that Kylo wanted? Was that something that Snoke wanted in the beginning? So like, what was the idea between the helmet? Because the Last Jedi really offered the idea that Snoke didn't like that he was very much against him wearing that helmet.
Well, I feel like honestly, along with what you're saying, is the reason why Snoke talked. I feel like he talks so much about Vader and oh, you want to be like Vader and stuff like that. Is not because Snoke necessarily wanted him to be that power, but I feel like he wanted him to be that that side person, that
Yeah,
person who's just below him and stays below him as he viewed Vader to be under Palpatine. I feel like that's what he was more so wanting, and he wanted him to reach that potential, but still remaining below him. Because honestly, I don't believe Snoke wanted Kylo to eventually overthrow him and become more powerful than even
yeah,
he was. I don't see him wanting that at all.
yeah. I think it's very possible. And we got another comment in the chat here. It says from North Star. He says, "What would be cool is if the Knights of Ren argued and maybe even fought Kylo for the role of Supreme Leader. And yes, spin-off movie of Knights of Ren would be cool. I think that's definitely possible. Them kind of being like an infighting between the Knights of Ren because uh
Right.
not because of Snoke being killed by Kylo, because I don't think anybody knows that really, but it's the fact that their leader's dead. And looking at what Kylo has done so far as the Supreme Leader, which is let the Resistance get away, be fooled by Luke Skywalker. It's he already has two big notches in his role as Supreme Leader. And even looking past that, before he was Supreme Leader, he had a lot of failures. He lost to Rey, lost to Finn. He lost the Traitor. He lost
Right.
Starkiller Base. So he has a lot of like negative notches for himself. And really the only success that he has that they know of is that he did kill Han Solo. And even then Snoke denounced that, saying that he was unbalanced in that moment. He wasn't it wasn't something that he really knew he wanted to do. He did it because Snoke wanted him to do it, not because he wanted to
For
do
sure.
it. And it's really something to think about when you look into it. It's like, oh, well, no, Knight of Ren number two might think that he's more suited to be Supreme Leader because he's done so much more than what Kylo has, and he's focused on what he has to be. So I think infighting within the Knights of Ren would be something very important to think about as we move forward to Episode 9, hoping that they do use the Knights of Ren for Episode 9.
Definitely.
So that's something to consider. Now, I'm I do kind of want to know a little bit more about their philosophy and what their beliefs are moving forward. I want to know like what stories they have within their religion, if it is a religion anyway. I want to know like even then, like, what is the name of the religion? Like, is their religion a name? Because like Knights of Ren will be more like what they call themselves. Like, what do they call their dominion of the dark side? Like,
Right.
do they have any prophecies? Because I remember way back when the novelization of The Force Awakens came out, there was a line in the novelization that wasn't in the film. It was when Rey it was when Kylo it was just when he sliced Finn up the back and was using the Force to pull the Skywalker saber, and it zoomed past him into the hands of Rey. And in the novelization, when that moment happened, Kylo murmured to himself, "It is you." So it seems as though that there was something about Rey that they knew all along, and I really want to see if, like, within whatever religion the Knights of Ren have, like, is there a prophecy that fits who Rey is, and like they had suspicions about it, and in that moment, Kylo knew that yeah, this is Rey, like she is, the one that this prophecy spoke about, or she is the one that the text, the like whatever text he was reading spoke about. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like some kind of knowledge that they follow, whatever their beliefs are, like something concrete with the Knights of Ren that they study beyond just their training with the dark side of the Force, but what they have to understand about the dark side of the Force. So
Right.
that's I think for me personally, that's the biggest thing I want about the Knights of Ren, because knowing what they study will give you a better understanding about what they do. Because I think
Right.
when you look at the Jedi, we know that they study certain things, like they study the idea of no relationships and all of that stuff. They have the chosen one prophecy, which gives you an idea of like what they believe in. And the dark side, they very much have the idea of the rule of two. They study that and things of that variety. So knowing what the Knights of Ren study, I think, would be very important moving forward, because we really don't know what they believe in except the dark side.
Right. And then another thing, talking about religion and stuff, and for me personally, because I'm a big fan of this character, I'm curious to see, are they any, like, is there any relation, like, similarities wise? I know there's probably not, there's no relation, but similarity wise to Rebenites, how
Yeah.
they have their own set beliefs apart from Jedi or Sith, and they believe and they follow Revan. Well, would there be like the same situation for like Kylo said, like what do they follow? Like
Yeah.
what do they do that sets them apart from, I don't know, Sith, Jedi, and all of them? Like what makes them so much different?
Yeah, because
That's something I would like to see.
it's just like it's just like you want to understand them. You don't just want to know about them.
Exactly.
You want to see them because so far canon wise, literally the only stuff we've seen is them is that flash sequence in Rey's vision back in Force Awakens. That's all we've seen of them, and that just isn't enough. Because like I think one of the things that also interests me about them, I want to see this explanation behind it, is it appears that Kylo is the only one who uses a lightsaber within all of them, which is a bit strange to me to see that, especially now knowing that they were once students of Luke Skywalker.
Well, you s- I could have swore, like when I looked at the concepts, that I saw one of them carrying a lightsaber, or at least a hilt.
I
So,
mean, yeah,
I,
but I think, but some of them have like staffs and whatnot. Now, I just kind of
right.
want to know what would be the deal? Like, why do you use a staff and this one uses lightsaber? And I think after seeing Last Jedi, they could go for like, oh, this is something that's like lightsaber resistant because the Praetorian Guards had lightsaber resistant pieces on their armor and their weapons were like had lightsaber resistant technology like in them. So maybe they have
Oh yeah, for
something
sure.
lightsaber resistant in those stabs, because that's is there. Because I feel like if that's the route they can go, they can say that Snoke was like more attuned to giving them what they thought was best for them, which is why Snoke gave Kylo a crossguard saber because maybe he thought that would be best fit for him.
Right.
Because that also is something that's supported in the movie because when Ben was with the Jedi when he was with Luke, he didn't have a crossguard saber. He had like the basic hilt designed saber. He didn't have a crossguard saber yet. And that was something that Snoke gave him later on. So maybe that was like Snoke saying, "Oh well, this Knight of Ren needs to fight with this weapon because I feel like this is where he'll meet his full capabilities fighting like this, and vice versa, and so on and so on. Each other Knight of Ren."
For sure.
So maybe that's the case. I just can't really say anything about it thus far because as we've said numerous times, we don't know nothing about Knights of Ren yet. So I just hope we get to that point to where we have Knights of Ren information.
Right.
And Yaku just put in the chat. He said it would be nice to see a new group that had a different view and input in the Force. And I think they definitely had the chance to do it with Knights of Ren. And then the other group that has a different view. But yeah, like this one said, like they have that chance with Knights of Ren to do that. But I think
Right.
also just looking past Knights of Ren, there'll also be. I think we need a group that's in between in canon, because we don't have Revan yet. So that'd be a great way to bring
Unfortunately.
in Revan. Yeah, that'd be. I'm gonna say yet because we never know what they might do because we never thought we'd get Thrawn and yet we have Thrawn now. So we're gonna say yet on the Revan thing, and I'm especially gonna say yet on it because I know that Dave Filoni wants Revan because he tried back in Clone Wars, but George Lucas shut it down. So he definitely
Right.
want.
But they did bring back Darth Bane.
Yeah,
They
Bane
did
is
bring
in
him
there.
to canon.
So
So,
old Republic or Siths, I'm not gonna or Sith or people like Revan. I don't want to call him Sith. Uh, anybody like that,
right.
I'm not gonna say that you're not. Don't expect them to become canon, because there are people within the Lucasfilm story group, within Lucasfilm in general, that did enjoy those characters and have the power to bring them back. I.e. Dave Filoni. He's in charge of creative, so if he wants to make a show and just have a reference to Revan, he can do it, and that'll make Revan canon. Doesn't mean everything that happened with Revan is canon, but it'll make him as a character canon. So I think having a
Right.
different input on the Force, just I would really like that because another thing I would really like now that we're talking about this now is kind of having something like having different views for each aspect of the Force. Like we have the really because the really only light side view of the Force that we have is the Jedi. I would like to see
Right.
another light side view of the Force from a different group of individuals. We have another dark side view of the Force from the Knights of Ren. We don't have their full view yet, but it would be nice to get it. and then we also have, well, we don't have anything that's really in between. Like the closest thing we have to in between is the Bendu from Rebels. That's the closest thing we have to the in between. And I would really like to see a lot more, maybe like a whole faction devoted to that in between view of the Force.
Not just the Bendu, but Windu. What about Mace Windu?
Yeah.
He kind of had the sight of both sides, but we didn't really get to see his opinion on it as much. But he definitely touched both sides in many cases.
Because his lightsaber form was considered to be the closest thing to dark side that I could use, other than Force Judgment lightning that Plo Koon had created. I think that's Legends as well. Now, well, at least the lightning is Legends. I know Windu's saber style is still canon very much. But I think, like I said, I think having most reviews on the Force is something that's would definitely help everything if it happens, because I think different aspects on the Force is something that's very important right now. We had that style in Legends. I just don't want them to do what they did in Legends, because I know a lot of people enjoyed the story, but I didn't really like I don't want to call it a rebirth of the Sith, because I don't consider it a rebirth of the Sith. It was when Crate showed up and everything. I wasn't necessarily the biggest fan of that, because I don't know. I just having a different Sith. It'd be like a false prophet thing. It's like if a religion died out and then someone starts teaching that religion, even though it died years before them, you know.
Right.
So I don't want like a rebirth of the Sith. Just for the dark side, just give us more about these Knights of Ren, and I think I'll be pretty much okay with that. So yeah, that today has been MG Podcast number 4. We had great conversations.
Yaku posted something else. Something else.
We'll get to cover this one. He said, would you consider the Revenites a more light side, dark side, or middle ground view of the Force? I'm gonna let you take this, Gavin, because I know you have a lot of knowledge on Revan.
Revenites, I feel like, are definitely gonna be more middle ground, because they're more of a cult type, so they do see a lot of dark side and they do see a lot of light, but they go more for the middle ground because they know that it has more benefits than just touching one side. Revan was one of the biggest characters during the Old Republic, although he's Legends, and when he touched both sides, he really expanded himself so much so that he actually had 2 parts of himself. He had his Force Ghost and he had the dark side. Like, they actually separated. They definitely touch on both sides, and you get to see it a lot, especially through the Legends material.
Yeah. So
what do you think, Logan?
From what I know about the Revenites, and Revan himself, I would definitely consider them a middle ground, because I think it's very clear the distinction of what it means to be dark side, what it means to be light side. I think that's a very clear distinction, and for Revan, he understood those distinctions. That's very key for why he didn't consider himself neither, because you wouldn't consider yourself neither if you didn't understand, what it was like to be either. So I think I would definitely much put them as a middle ground view of the Force. So I think that's that answer. And now with that, we're gonna bring this MG podcast to a close. This was episode 4. If you wish to view other episodes, you can go to the videos on demand section tab here on our Mixer.com page, or you can wait until the previous 2 episodes. I didn't get around to uploading episode 3, but you can wait until they're uploaded to the YouTube page, which is the Marauders Guild. And speaking of the YouTube page, if you're not already subscribed over there, I suggest you do so, because as of right now, I am getting ready to write another What If series, and I'm looking to all of you in order to do that, all you have to go to the video in question where I ask you guys for the suggestion. You put it in the comment section below, or you can go to our Twitter, which is @Marauders Guild, and use the hashtag MGWhatIf. That is MGWhatIf, and post your what if on Twitter. And then our next MG podcast, which will be next Sunday. We usually do this on Sunday. We're just doing it today because we had some special circumstances. But we'll be back next Sunday with another episode, and we will announce what if will be chosen. So that is it for today. I don't really have anything else to say, so I'll see you guys next Sunday. Until then, may the force of others be with you.